All right, so let's move on to another head coach in the NFL, because we're going to touch on the fact that there are these 8 new head coaches, and that you mentioned 4 of them will start workouts this week. All 8 could start workouts if they chose to at this point. But Sean Payton had some very interesting comments last week that kind of just came and went. But I found it really fascinating, because talk about the process of trends in the NFL and hiring coaches and how you have trends, and each season people sort of jump on something and they say things like, the thing that can be disappointing is you talk to someone and they give you the profile of the coach and they'll say, well, you're not interested in a young Bill Belichick or a young Tony Dungy. Well, they get so pigeonholed into, because this is cyclical, right? And ultimately you would say, if we did a little history, successful head coaches probably come from the East and the West and the North and the South. They come from all different areas. They probably come from both color, and they probably come on defense and offense. And they're good leaders. They're great leaders. And if you say you just want the one that coaches quarterbacks and they're on offense, well, then you're going to end up a smaller pool there. You'll probably have less of a chance to be right, because already of 8 hired, there's going to be 3 that survive 3 years. You know, more to that point, he also said something about season by season there are trends. Teams look out, they say something like, I want Alvin Kamara. Well, you can't have him. You go to the draft 10 more running backs, and you can be 0 for 10 to find him. Or, and this is really where he touches on this, you want basically a Sean McVay.
Right.
All right? And that's what everyone seems to want at head coach. Well, I see a lot of mistakes made in that process. I feel like being this long in the offseason, we're excited to play those teams, which right there gets to the heart of, trends or not, that's a little bit of smack talk out of a coach, where he thinks the process is wrong. He thinks everyone's chasing this certain type of head coach. Not everyone's going to be McVay just because you were buddies with him at one point or you coached under him. But you don't hear coaches speak that plainly and that bluntly. In fact, most coaches want to avoid that talk, and they want their players to avoid it. What do you think of what he said?
Well, first of all, that's why I love Sean Payton. Whatever it is, the rules being changed, situations like this, Will Smith dying from the gun, being shot in the traffic altercation. He spoke out loudly against gun use, all of those things. He doesn't care. He tries to discuss what he thinks is right and wrong. And with this subject, come on, he's spot on. I mean, he really is. I mean, again, what he's saying, too, is not personal against the coaches who have been hired. What I think it's more is personal to the organizations. What he's saying to the front offices there is, me, Sean Payton, the guy who's won a Super Bowl and won a lot of close playoff games and done a lot of great things for my career, I'm excited to play your new coach who's never called plays before, let alone be a head coach, or never designed an offensive game plan before, let alone to be a head coach, or haven't even coached a down in the NFL yet. And here you are as a head coach in the NFL. So I think that's more what he's speaking to go, there's great candidates being left out of the conversation on a yearly basis because of what we're talking about. Oh, the hot new guy. We're all trying to find Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. Well, you know why Sean McVay and the Kyle Shanahans were hired at a young age? Because they were really good at what they did. It wasn't because, they knew other young guys and it worked out. No, they were ahead of the time. They're kid geniuses in their own right.
Exactly. And we call these guys unique for a reason.
Yes.
All right? They are unique. That means you cannot find 8 of them in a season. You can't just say, all right, we want someone just like that. You can't. They are unique. You're not going to find them year in, year out. But I think more to his point also is just the idea of, you get a good offensive mind. That's great. And it's important to every football team, obviously. You need leadership.
Leadership is crucial
at the top. And I think he sees other candidates who have those skills being overlooked. And I think it really bothers him. Now, we talk about shade being thrown or smack talk or bulletin board material potentially out there. You should mention that on their schedule next year, the Saints, they only have to play one of these young coaches, and that's Kingsbury, and that's Arizona. And they're probably at this point not that worried about it.
Well, I would think that they're in a different class than that, certainly. But I mean, again, he's just speaking to a guy going, and Cliff Kingsbury, who I think has all the potential to be a successful NFL head coach. He's still got to prove it to me. I still think the hiring was crazy. I mean, he was not even up for a head coaching job in college football, let alone an NFL head coaching job. And all of a sudden he becomes this hot new guy. Yes, because he's relatable. I understand that. He can relate to players. All those things are positives. But it is still a game about leadership, detail, getting your team to believe. And I think that's where we're leaving out candidates like, hey, I always think of guys, Dave Taub, the special teams coordinator for years of the Kansas City Chiefs, who was a phenomenal coach. He gets left out of the conversations. Guys like Mike Munchak. Yeah, I know he was a head coach down with the Tennessee Titans, and it didn't work out great the first time, but there was some extenuating circumstances that went into some issues there altogether. You're leaving out a lot of guys who I think are extremely qualified for the job. Dan Campbell, who took over the Miami Dolphins, who works under Sean Payton, and that's probably what he's really the jumping off point of this conversation to go, again, it's not always about being an offensive genius or being the quarterback guy. I think if we go through some of the teams in football right now and you look at the head coaches, okay, I mean, hey, Andy Reid, yeah, okay, maybe he is a quarterback guy, but he was kind of an offensive line guy who worked his way and proved himself with the Green Bay Packers to get there. But there's a lot of other coaches, whether it's Bill Belichick, Anthony Lynn, John Harbaugh, who saw the game from a different angle as from a quarterback whisperer, and they're still extremely good head coaches. Why? Because their teams are detailed, tough, disciplined. They know how to play situational football.
And I think with Harbaugh, you mentioned situational football. Right. The idea is you may not think of him as one of these young, innovative, offensive-minded coaches, but he has an ability to adapt, and he showed that ability last year. At a time when he was rumored to be on the way out.
Right.
He showed an ability to adapt.
He definitely showed an ability to adapt. And, again, it is still football is it is a sport about physical play, willpower, having a, set plan to where your teams match offensively and defensively as far as the game plans being cohesive, all of those things. But a lot of that, nobody cares about anymore. It's all about quarterback numbers, quarterback whisperer, and we think this guy's good with the quarterback. And, that absolutely just drives me crazy because, again, it's build the team, and then the quarterback will be successful if you put the right team and scheme around the quarterback. But I think this day and age, we're trying to do it the other way around. We think, if we get the quarterback and he plays well, everything will fall in place, and I just don't think that's necessarily true.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.